Hi everyone, I'm Ramona Risco Benson, PICO's Director of Corporate and Community Relations. PICO is committed to supporting the communities in our service region and always seek to invest in organizations and programs that improve the quality of life for our customers. We are a dedicated corporate contributor in our region with organizational missions and issues that are aligned with our values. I'm proud to say that even in this COVID environment, nearly 1,000 employees have contributed their time and financial support as active and engaged members where we live, work, and serve as project volunteers. They've created competitive teams to fundraise for recovery efforts and giving through our annual giving campaign. In 2020, PICO made over 400 grants to local nonprofit organizations totaling more than $6 million. This funding included support to our community partners, eliminating restrictions on use of funds or easier access to receive support. For arts and culture, this includes PICO's support for the relief fund that was led by the Cultural Alliance. We understood the need to contribute to the sustainability of the arts sector, supporting operations, staffing, and much-needed programs for our communities. And in all of our giving last year, more than 90% of these organizations aligned with PICO's diversity, equity, and inclusion values. We expect this participation number to increase to 100% with our giving expectations. Diversity, equity, and inclusion have been an important value at PICO for decades. The issues leading to broader focus on racial and social equity have suggested that we consider how to do more at our company. The realignment of our giving pillars allows us to be even more intentional. And PICO has partnered with the Greater Philadelphia Cultural Alliance for over 10 years. This year, we are proud to fund the Fall 2021 COVID-19 Impact Study. We know that the region's arts and culture community use this research to benchmark for critical planning and forecasting strategies. We also know that funders, as well as our civic leaders, use this data to have informed decisions about funding priorities and other forms of support for the sector made. While this report highlights the continued strain that arts and culture is experiencing, we know that this sector is an important asset to our region and its recovery. PICO will continue to partner with the Cultural Alliance to champion this sector to key decision makers in our region. As a former CEO of the African American Museum, I look forward to working with my former colleague, Patty Wilson-Aden, as she transitions back to the Philadelphia region to lead the next phase and very challenging recovery effort of our sector. And thanks to all of you for what you continue to do.
Hello, my name is Kristen Vinn, and I am the Senior Manager of Data and Communications at the Greater Philadelphia Cultural Alliance. Our COVID-19 research began in November 2020, when we first surveyed arts and culture organizations about the impact of the pandemic. We've now conducted 3 surveys about the pandemic's impact, with the most recent wrapping in October 2021. We learned a lot from our first 2 surveys, including how much the sector lost in revenue during the first year of the pandemic. $372 million, a devastating loss representing more than $1 million a day lost to the arts and culture sector in our region. Through data modeling informed by our spring 2021 survey, we were able to estimate how the economic impact of the region's entire arts and culture sector was affected. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, the arts and culture sector contributed a total impact of $4.27 billion to the local economy. From March 2020 to March 2021, there was a 55% decline in arts and cultural organizations' economic impact on their communities. Nearly half the pre-pandemic job force generated by the arts and culture sector is gone. In-person arts and culture audience spending saw a 77% decline year over year. Recovery seemed hopeful this past summer. Vaccine distribution had kicked into high gear, and many organizations began to reopen. Numerous organizations also received additional relief funding in the form of Shuttered Venue Operators grants, Illuminate the Arts grants from the City of Philadelphia, as well as federal and state funding from CARES and the American Rescue Plan. But in late summer, the Delta variant created more uncertainty, and it became clear that the recovery for the arts and culture sector would be prolonged even further. To continue monitoring the region through this crisis, we sent out another survey to arts and cultural organizations in September 2021, and 138 of you participated in the survey. We know how much time and work goes into responding to these surveys, and we appreciate everyone who was able to respond. Before we look at the preliminary results, the Culture Alliance would like to thank the Pennsylvania Humanities Council and their Executive Director, Lori Zierer. They have been our partners analyzing this data alongside staff at the Culture Alliance. We also thank PICO for sponsoring this research and the corresponding report that we'll publish later this month. Here's what the fall 2021 COVID impact study results tell us so far. The budgets of arts and cultural organizations have dropped significantly, by 26% from fiscal year 2019 to 2021, compared to only 12% during the Great Recession. This is based on responses from organizations that participated in the survey, as well as projections informed by sector-wide analysis. This trend in decreased budgets was true across organizations of all sizes. As we established in our prior research, earned revenue is where arts and cultural organizations have been hit the hardest. For the first time in our COVID-19 research, this survey asked organizations to provide earned revenue data, and the results were startling. Across all responding organizations, earned revenue dropped by 46%. We also took a look at contributed revenue budgets for the first time, and we learned that while contributed revenue was down in fiscal year 2020, it was up by 9% in fiscal year 2021. Why? This is likely because of the relief funding organizations have received over the past 18 months from PPP loans, ARP and CARES funding, as well as additional relief funding from foundations and others. We've heard from arts and culture organizations that this funding helped them survive during 2021. But we know this is non-recurring contributed revenue as we look ahead to 2022, and the impact of that on the sector is yet to be determined. What are the current financial concerns for arts organizations in the region? Earned revenue remains a top financial concern. 3/4 of organizations indicated as such. More than half of organizations are concerned about a potential reduction in individual giving contributions, and about half are concerned about a reduction in foundation contributions. While fewer arts organizations are concerned about the possibility of closing this time around, more than 2/3 are concerned about the possibility of COVID-19 impacts on operations and attendance. While pandemic relief funding helped keep organizations running, many of them still had to make staffing reductions. Of the participating organizations who had paid staff, more than half, or 56% of organizations furloughed, laid off, or reduced work for staff and contractors. We took a snapshot look at how employment was doing in the region, comparing September 21 to pre-pandemic numbers in March 2020. The arts and culture sector is down by about 8,400 jobs, or a 35% decline in the size of the workforce. Seasonal and contract workers have been the most affected by COVID-19 job cuts, disproportionately affecting Black, Indigenous, and people of color. Last spring, 41% of participating organizations told us that they wouldn't be able to operate for more than 9 months on current earned and contributed revenue income. In our fall 2021 survey, we asked organizations about their operational status. Had you reduced or changed your capacity? Merged with another organization? Was your organization hibernating until COVID-19 had subsided? No one who participated in this fall survey indicated that they were hibernating or had shut down. However, the majority of respondents aren't operating like they were in 2019. 81% of organizations reported that they were working at either a reduced or modified capacity. 32% of them were operating at a reduced capacity with less staff and/or programming than before the pandemic. Just 17% were operating at a normal or increased capacity. The majority of participating organizations, more than 70%, received PPP loans, and almost everyone received some sort of relief funding since March 2020, including CARES funding, ARP funding, and relief funding from foundations. We've heard directly from several arts and cultural organizations that relief funding has helped keep them afloat. Many of them noted that federal grant programs are the reason they are still surviving. Again, the non-recurrence of such extraordinary funding may have an impact as organizations enter 2022. Many organizations have also made a lot of budget cuts in key areas. 60% reduced marketing budgets. 60% reduced programming budgets, the core of arts and culture organizations, and many of these cuts remain. But we know that people are really looking forward to attending in-person events, going to concerts, shows, and museums. Marketing to reach these audiences will help organizations recover and contribute to the recovery of our communities and region. Arts organizations are hanging in there, but their diminished capacity is impeding the work that makes the arts and culture community what it truly is, and affecting its impact on our region, city, and neighborhoods. Based on these responses and our analysis, here are our takeaways. Arts organizations are surviving, but there is a real concern about the future, especially as one-time relief funding dries up and the future of earned income is still uncertain as patrons decide whether and when they will return. There's also a real concern about whether individual and foundation contributions can be sustained at pre-pandemic levels. Relief funding, including government funding in the form of PPP loans, CARES funding, ARP funding, and more, has been key in helping arts and culture organizations survive. However, this contributed income won't continue into 2022, and the impact of that on the sector has yet to be determined. The crisis caused by the COVID-19 pandemic has exacerbated vulnerability in the current business model for the arts and culture sector. While earned revenue and contributions from individuals and foundations are critical both during a pandemic and as the sector recovers, it is becoming clearer that government funding may play a much more critical role in the long-term health and sustainability of the sector. The arts and culture community is incredibly resilient. Despite seemingly insurmountable challenges over the past 18 months, we continue to advance our creative missions and serve our communities. This is not the first crisis we've survived. Remember, we are vibrant, collaborative, resilient.